Hi there, Mike Brady with Generosity Wealth Management, a comprehensive full-service wealth management firm headquartered right here in Boulder, Colorado. Today I want to talk about regulations. Are they good? Are they bad? Should we have more? Should we have less? And I'm going to tell you that I'm right in between, okay? The most important thing is that it doesn't solve everything. First off, before you think I'm some kind of a radical, you've got two extremes. This is 100% regulations. This is 0% regulation. And I don't think that anybody of sane mind is saying that we should have 100% regulation, that's government ownership of everything, or zero regulations. I don't know what things were like before 1929 crash, but I definitely know that after that fact, there have always been some kind of regulation. It's not necessarily a panacea. It doesn't solve all your problems, and I think that it's good for us as investors not to necessarily advocate for more or less, but just to understand that they have a place, but it just doesn't solve everything. And if you think it's going to, then I think you're going to have a false sense of security because something is probably going to happen in the future as well. Let me tell you why I'm even bringing up today's topic. I've probably done 100, maybe 150 of these particular videos over the last 5 years. And the reason why I started doing the videos is I thought it was a great way an additional way to communicate with clients and friends, maybe prospective clients. It's a way for me to try to be as clear and concise as possible to share with you what I'm thinking and how I view things without having to pick up the phone, and call every single person. That might be a very inefficient way to do it. I also want it to be educational for you. So if you've been watching a lot of my videos, you know that I talk about maybe a current topic, maybe a general topic, etc. Because the way I view things is just because I do this all day, it's not because I'm smarter than you, but maybe I'm on page 5, maybe I'm on page 6, and because you don't do this every day, maybe your education level in investments and financial planning is on a page 2, and so if I can help bring you up to page 3 or page 4, we can have a great conversation, and I think you're better off for it, and I think I am as well. Well, out of all those videos, I recently did a video last week that it was called All About Those Bonds. And it's actually, I don't know if you ever heard that song, All About That Bass, All That Bass. Well, I called it All About Those Bonds, and I figured a couple people would get the joke. But it turned out to be a 16, 17-minute video about bonds. So I talked about price, I talked about yield, I talked about what a bond is, how it works, premium, discount. I mean, in my opinion, it was a beautiful video. I was very proud of myself because I thought that I could refer back to it in coming months and coming years and say, wow, you have a question about bonds? Just look at this particular video. Inside there, I talked about bond funds, and I talked about the characteristics of bond funds. And so I was trying to talk in layman's terms about the characteristics of them, whether they could lose money, make money, in various situations like that. And so for 30 seconds, I actually talked and warned about some things in bond funds. But because of that, I talked about the characteristics of bonds. A compliance department examiner doing absolutely her best job, I mean, that's what she's supposed to do, said, Mike, this is actually, if you can't talk about characteristics of bonds without FINRA approval. Now, FINRA is one of the regulators. It's a self-regulatory organization. It's just one of the big regulators out there for broker-dealers. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I get FINRA approval? And she's like, well, you got to pay a certain amount of money. I think it was like $125, and it's probably going to take 5 or 6 weeks. I'm like, really? You got to be kidding me. And so I just decided it wasn't worth the hassle, frankly, to go through all that delay and some of the requirements. It's not the $125. It's actually the transcript. It's actually more involved than what I've led you to believe. So I basically just said, okay, it's just not worth it for me to do it. Now, the unintended consequence of that particular regulation is that what I feel is a great educational opportunity for clients is not going to be out there. A warning of some things that you should beware of as it relates to particular bonds. And I think that bonds have a place in a portfolio. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. I think that they're a good place for most people in their portfolio. And of course, you've got to personalize it to your individual situation. But because of this particular regulation, that message isn't getting out there. Look at prospectuses. Prospectuses, once again, I wasn't around in the 1930s and the 1940s, but the prospectuses were probably very small. Okay, I've been doing this for 24 years. I started working with clients in 1991. And at that point, the prospectuses were pretty fat. And over the years, my perception has been they get fatter and fatter and fatter because more and more either regulation or disclosure gets in there. And to a certain degree that unfortunately, most people don't read the prospectus. I highly encourage you to read the prospectus, okay? And I give out prospectuses to every client, prior or concurrent with an investment. However, the unintended consequence of those, some regulations have been to a certain point where it has now done possibly, it just has not achieved its ultimate goal, which is to inform the client. They've overinformed with so much information that you get nothing, okay? Back in 2008, there was a big discussion about too big to fail, that there were various banks and institutions that were so big that we shouldn't have that. We shouldn't have, people would say, wait a second, we shouldn't have to bail these things out, and you shouldn't be allowed to be too big to fail. Well, unfortunately, many of the regulations that come out work against the decentralization because every regulation has some kind of a cost associated with it. And sometimes it's hard to say what that actual cost is. But if it's an extra sheet of paper that's required, if it's an extra piece of documentation, I have to tell you, I've gone through, in the last 24 years, you have periodic audits. And if I don't have an envelope, if I don't have a folder with a label on it, even though it's empty, I have to have that label and that folder. But if I don't, they'll ding me. So there's a lot of bureaucratic type of things that add to the cost of doing business. And the unintended consequence of some regulations are that it causes smaller operations, smaller businesses to just not be able to, survive and be profitable. And so they have to merge with larger ones. And pretty soon you have, instead of 5 small ones, you might have 2 or 3, or maybe have 1 because they have to group together for the economy of scale. Now, I'm being very broad here and very general, but the most important thing is that regulations are not a cure-all for everything. Do I think we should have some regulations? Absolutely. And I certainly hope you're not getting from me that we should have no regulations. But I like to think of it as even the prison system. I think that there are some people who are a danger to society. Okay, they just are, and it's for the good of the community that they are possibly, they're put away into, and shielded from us and from harming us. But it's very easy to say, wow, I'm tough on crime, so therefore the easy answer is let's put more people in prison. Well, after decades of saying that, pretty soon we have a lot of people in prison, and we have a huge amount of money going towards prison because the easy answer was, well, let's just put them in prison. That's the answer for everything. Every time some kind of a crime happens, we need to be tougher on crime. Well, it's the same way when something bad happens in the financial world. It's like, well, let's throw more regulations on there because that's kind of the knee-jerk answer. And my response is, just so that you know where I stand, is usually, well, let's look at what we currently have. And do they need to be modified? Are there some regulations that maybe need to be cut that actually were an unintended consequence that led to that bad action? And so it's really more piling on. So that's my video today. Really, the most important thing I want you to take away from this is that I think regulations are good. And I'm glad that we have regulators. I truly believe that. But it is not an answer to everything. And one of the unintended consequences at times of some regulations are unforeseen. That's why they're unintended. Okay, they weren't intended to begin with. But also sometimes the end investor is actually hurt. And in my case, I think the video that I did was wonderful and beautiful. And unfortunately, you're never going to see it. But it was a good education, I think, for all my clients who see this particular video. If you want to know more about bonds, give me a call, because I'll be able to do that for you in person. And I think that over this next year, I'm going to make a commitment to, at every meeting, really educating you on what's the difference between price and yield. Why is the 10-year treasury important? Why has this been on the news all this time? And where in my portfolio, speaking as you, where in a client's portfolio do bonds have a place? Do they have a big place, a little place? What is it for you? So I'm going to now do it for you individually, since doing it en masse didn't work out for me. I am looking forward to doing another video for you in a couple of weeks. I'm doing this on a Thursday afternoon, so hopefully you're getting it, Thursday night, maybe Friday morning, because at his consideration, they said, "Oh, Mike, we'll look at your stuff right away so you can get your newsletter out." So anyway, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great weekend, and you have a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye-bye.